For Christmas 2010, I got a few pretty excellent music CDs. When I added them to my music library, I realised that, in fact, I'd never really amassed that much of a music collection, or at least compared to some people I know who could build a house out of their collection of Japanese game soundtracks. With that realisation, I decided that for the duration of 2011, I would try to buy at least one album every month. So, just for fun, here's what I got and what I thought about what I got. Although please bear in mind that I am one of those annoying people that says, I don't know about music but I know what I hate, and that I used to think that a semiquaver was a broken crisp. Caught a snatch of one of the songs from this album in a fake trailer, liked what I heard and invested in the album. It was actually an odd experience the first time I listened to it. Somehow, it was exactly what I was in the mood for, and I loved every minute of it. The tracks are by turns haunting, hopeful, and epic, and the presentation of this double album is superb. My first ever digital album purchase, which came courtesy of a £2 MP3 voucher. There's not much to say really. I love the movie, and the soundtrack is fantastic, and works very well as a standalone piece. I came across All Ends thanks to the song With Me on the Sonic and the Black Knight soundtrack. This album I like, but I can't quite say I love. The problem, for me at least, is that every track has the same sort of feel to it, and whilst I do enjoy them, it's not a particularly varied album. These, alas, are two of my least favourite purchases from 2011. The problem is that whilst both the music and the score do complement the movie, the music from the film soundtrack is a compilation CD, and the score soundtrack is entirely forgettable. As an aside, the film itself is fantastic. My first experience of Within Temptation was Stand My Ground, which I encountered on one of the music channels several years ago. Flash forward several years, and The Unforgiving is one of the most unrelentingly entertaining albums that I've ever heard. I enjoyed every track that's present on the album, and Iron is probably the best track that I heard in 2011. My introduction to Weird Al was via Dare to Be Stupid in the 1986 animated Transformers movie. 2 decades later, I finally buy a Weird Al album, and it's great fun. On first listen, several tracks, notably Melanie and Good Old Days, cracked me up. But even when the laughs are less frequent, it's still good, entertaining music. After my positive experience with Even Worse, I got Weird Al's latest, and I didn't enjoy it. In part, it might have been my unfamiliarity with the songs he's parodying. A good friend who was more familiar with some of the original songs actually found them fairly entertaining, so make of that what you will. However, Poker Face, which is a medley, was absolutely abysmal. I stumbled across the music video for Precious Dark, and after 4 or 5 watches/listens, I still wasn't sure if I liked it or not. It was good, but parts of it sounded like a theme song to a TV show. However, I decided to take a gamble, and I bought the album, and I loved it. The music is by turns fun and haunting, the vocals are good and distinctive, and also, soppy git that I am, in passing, left me blubbing like a baby. One thing I did like very much, though, was the fun Indica had with the English language. The album is littered with moments like the album title, words or sentences which sound similar but have very different meanings. Well, it made me smile at any rate. Tarya's first solo album after she and Nightwish parted ways didn't do much for me. Her vocals were great, but not only was the whole album very dirgy, there was a terrible cover of Poison on it. This album, by contrast, is much better. There's a good mix in the tracks themselves, with the opening track Anteroom of Death being one of the oddest I've heard this year, but in a very good way. There is one thing though, and it's been bugging me for months now. Just listen to this bit, pay particular attention to the tune. Ignore the words, but just listen to the tune of it. That sounds so familiar. I swear I have heard that somewhere before, but I cannot for the life of me place it. If anyone has any ideas, I would be very, very grateful if you could put me out of my misery. My cousin sent me a link to one of their songs, and I'm very grateful for that, because this has become one of my favourite albums. The tracks range from heavy to not so heavy to an absolutely beautiful near solo effort from Floor Jansen, all of which suit me perfectly. The closest thing I have to a criticism, though, is simply a matter of taste. Now, I've never been a huge fan of this sort of singing. Welcome to my pain, my rough bucket, but demons dwell. Now, it doesn't ruin anything on the album, but I don't think I'd miss it if it wasn't there. But as I say, that's just my taste, and I'm definitely looking forward to what they come up with next. I won't lie and say that I enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed 01011001, because I didn't. That's not to say it's bad, because it's not. It just took me 2 or 3 listens to get into it. Whilst the binary one has an overriding theme, Into the Electric Castle is very much a narrative piece. The only real issue I had was that there is a lot of music without lyrics. I mean, similar to Life is a Lemon from Bat Out of Hell 2. Honestly, it wore a little thin, especially as the parts with lyrics were fantastic and were indeed what I would have liked more of. Say what you like, but if it weren't for Fallen, my music collection would be even more pitiful than it is at present. However, given how dull I found The Open Door, I was naturally cautious, but I'm glad I got this album as it's actually very good. It's much faster paced than The Open Door, but not as heavy as Fallen, which works fine for me. My second ever digital album, again thanks to a £2 gift voucher. Two Steps from Hell create the awesome music you tend to hear in trailers, and this is an album of that sort of music. Did I like it? Hell yeah, I did. It's a collection of epic music tracks, none of which overstay their welcome. However, this does highlight why I prefer to have physical copies over digital copies. I'd much rather have this on my shelf than a burned CD. In 2011, I personally added 14 albums to my music collection. Now, in fairness, I was rather helped out with my choices, as Within Temptation, Evanescence and Tarja all had new albums out, and the movie soundtracks and the Weird Al albums weren't exactly choices from left field. But overall, I'm very pleased with how things went in 2011, and I certainly had more hits than misses. So in 2012, I'll see if I can't push the boat out just a little bit more.